Welcome to Business Over a Brew, the show where we talk business with some of the Riverbend's most interesting and influential business leaders, all while enjoying a nice brew. I'm your host, Nick Darr. In this episode, we'll talk to Lauren Patton, owner of Old Bakery Beer Company. She'll tell us about some of the biggest challenges of running a business and what's on the horizon for Old Bakery Beer. So let's get to it. It's the Business Over a Brew podcast from Germania Brewhouse. Welcome to Business Over a Brew. We welcome Lauren Patton from Old Bakery Beer Company to Business Over a Brew. Thanks for coming on.
Me.
Well, first of all, let's just start with what are we drinking today? It's delicious, by the way.
Today, from the Old Bakery Beer Company, we're having the light roast. It's our coffee golden ale, so kind of an unexpected beer to add coffee to. But you start with a light golden ale, and I'll add coffee from Caldi's Coffee in St. Louis. And I think the kind of the light hoppiness and kind of the fruitier coffee flavors stand out.
It seems like most of the coffee stouts are a little bit darker. This one's really nice and light, though. That's pretty odd, isn't it? Unique, I guess.
It's definitely more common to have coffee in like a heavier stout or porter or something like that. So.
Well, tell us a little bit just the story of Old Bakery Beer. It's been around for a few years now, and really just a neat business that I think has played a big part in revitalizing the downtown area.
Well, thank you for that. We did open the Old Bakery Beer Company. We opened in January of 2015. We're a certified organic craft brewery, one of the only certified organic ones in the country. There's like 5,500 breweries now in the U.S. and only 30 that are certified organic. So that's kind of a neat point of differentiation for us, and it's really important to us too to kind of make sure we're thinking about sustainability in our business. And then we do have a full restaurant, an event space, and all of that in downtown Alton as well. Talk
about the space and what led into procuring that building, selecting that spot, because it really is a cool spot.
Yeah, it's an amazing building. We actually were living in St. Louis at the time that we decided that we wanted to open a brewery. My husband and I both grew up here, but we weren't sure that we were going to bring it back to Alton. We were honestly looking in more like Southwest St. Louis for buildings, and our parents still lived here, so the search kind of brought us here because of that. And it was the only building we ever looked at in Alton, and as soon as we stepped into the building, we were like, well, this is it. So it's a really cool building. Obviously where the name came from, the building was a bakery since the late 1800s. It was Knowles Baking and Catering Company, Alton Baking, and then most recently Colonial Bakery, which just shut down in the 80s. So it's a really large building. We use 18,000 square feet of it, and it's just been sitting there empty for a couple decades.
I mean, obviously looking in the St. Louis market, you're drawing from a bigger population base, but I'm sure pleased with the decision to open in Alton.
Yeah, we're really happy that we came back here too, especially since we found out we were pregnant 4 weeks after opening. It was really convenient to be located a little bit closer to our family. So we're happy for that, but we're also really happy with the community that we found in Alton.
And you bring up community. You guys do a lot for the community, a lot of charitable events. That's kind of been, I think, really one of the tenets of how you guys have done business. I assume that was intentional from the start, or just something that kind of happened?
Oh yeah, that's been intentional. I mean, if we're going to run a business here, we want to make sure that we're helping the community around us succeed. And if you can't give back while you're running a business, to some extent, I don't really see the point in doing it. So we do have several like ongoing things for fundraising, like our Drink for a Cause night, which is the third Thursday of every month. We give back 25% of all the beers sold to a different charity every month. And then we do random fundraising all the time as well.
When you guys opened, was it always a plan to try to get into grocery stores and other places to distribute the product? Or is that just something that kind of grew after seeing that you had a product that seemed to be in a great deal of demand?
It was intentional. It was kind of the goal from the start. If we opened in St. Louis, we may have had like a slightly smaller facility. We may have just been a brew pub, but given the square footage that we started with, we kind of had to find more outlets than just the restaurant for selling our beer. So we did have that goal of expanding into distribution and canning and all of that.
Talk about just the process of making it. Where do the ingredients come from? How is it made? Where is it made? Things like that.
Yeah, so one of the other, along with being organic, the other kind of unique thing about our beer in particular is that we do use only American sourced malt and hops. So a lot of places are importing malt and hops from New Zealand or Europe. So obviously we want to cut down on all of that shipping that's happening. Unfortunately, there aren't a ton of ingredients that grow super locally for beer. But we do get a lot of our hops from Michigan. That's about as close to us as they can grow very well. So we get a lot of our hops from there, and then the rest are from the Pacific Northwest. And then all of our malt is from Breeze Malting Company, which is in Wisconsin. And then we get a lot of our raw grains are from Illinois. That's the one thing that we are able to source luckily. So that's from Cow Creek Farm in Illinois. They do all of our raw wheat for us, and so it's a really fun relationship.
And then you guys have a great facility there, lots of space for making it, and I was impressed recently. We were there. A lot of people were there for the Small Business Revolution rally, and I was impressed about just the size that you and the number of people that you guys can accommodate.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of space. We probably had about 200 people in our event space at that time. That's probably the most that we've had in that room at one time. But yeah, we've got a good half of the space that we use is dedicated to the public spaces, so we can accommodate a big crowd.
What led to the decision to go, into this particular business? There's lots of businesses that you guys could have chose, but you selected this one. What were some of the things that attracted you to it?
I think there's probably one thing that attracted it.
Beer?
It was beer. Yeah.
Well, that's an easy answer, I guess.
We love beer.
Sure.
Why else?
So, and then the food piece came along too, and talk about some of the servings that you guys have there.
Yeah. We always knew we wanted to be able to serve great food alongside our beer. So we opened with the full intention of having a kitchen to complement that. Being in Alton, I think that we actually ended up seeing at least as much sales in food as we have in beer. We have people coming in just for the food, people who don't drink, and families bringing their kids and that sort of thing, which is wonderful. So we actually just released our new winter menu. We have mainly like sandwiches, salads, soups on the menu, but they rotate seasonally. And we have lots of fun specials this time around too, like fried chicken on Sundays now and pizza on Thursdays, so adding a lot of things.
And you still have a regular trivia night, I think?
Yeah, we have trivia every Wednesday night. It's from 7 to 9. It's free to play. It's really fun. It's tenacious trivia. It can get a little bit raunchy, so it's not necessarily
not
for children.
Not for the kids that night, maybe? Okay.
Yeah.
What have been some of the biggest surprises for you about owning a brewery, and some of the things that maybe you just didn't expect about owning the business?
That's an interesting question.
I try.
What has been surprising? How hard taxes can be sometimes. I think that, I guess going into it, probably the two areas where we just knew the least were accounting and distribution. So we've kind of learned that along the way. We haven't had too much trial and error with that. We've been lucky, but that was definitely our biggest, stumbling block on getting into things. I guess from a more romantic angle, we have been really impressed with how much Alton has kind of backed us and just started to grow as a community with so many new businesses opening up lately. So.
Okay. What are some of the future plans for Old Bakery in terms of in the restaurant and distribution wise as well?
Yeah, well, we are very excited. We actually just got our own canning line in on Monday, so that's a huge step for us. We've been using a mobile canning company called Midwest Mobile Canning. So basically they would drive their truck down, unload their canning line, can beer off at our place for a day or two, and then move on to another brewery to can their beer. So they were wonderful to work with, but it was a scheduling nightmare, as you can imagine, and now we'll just have way more control over our process. So that's super exciting for us to have that permanent piece of equipment in the brewery now. They're just getting ready to do the first test batch on it tomorrow, so that's really exciting. And then we are planning on expanding our distribution footprint within the next year. We're kind of still making our decision on where to go with that, so I won't say too much about it.
Sure, absolutely. And for those that don't know, today's the day that Alton got into the top 5 for the Small Business Revolution, and Old Bakery was instrumental in making that happen from the beginning. You were actually the first one, I think, that saw the show and recommended to some of your employees to write a letter and try to get us on the show. Is that right?
Yeah, so I guess I get to take the credit just for watching too much TV on Hulu. That's really what I contributed to the process. So I've seen the show on Hulu, so I decided to look it up and see if they were accepting nominations for the next season. I think when I looked it up, there were like 2 days left to submit nominations. So I emailed all of my family and all of our staff. And some other locals that I knew to ask them to nominate us, and one of our staff members was the one who got the kind of the call back for more information.
If you could give one piece of advice to somebody starting a new business, what would it be?
I think just to know your customer and know your business. I think kind of like we got into this business because we love beer. That's, I think, a lot of why we're doing well. So I think do something you're passionate about, not just something you think will make you a buck.
Well, Lauren, thanks a lot. Congratulations on a great first few years, and best of luck to you in future years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Well, that does it for this episode of Business Over a Brew. Thanks to our host, Germania Brewhouse, and our guest, Lauren Patton with Old Bakery Beer Company. I'm your host, Nick Darr. Tune in next time for more video of me drinking free beer with some of the Riverbend's most interesting and influential business leaders on Business Over a Brew.